We think it went too far the moment Hamas invaded Israel by air, land and sea on October 7th, perpetrated the bloodiest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, and abducted 250 people into the Gaza Strip. And we're fighting now to bring back those vulnerable hostages still trapped in the Hamas terror dungeons, knowing the physical, psychological and sexual abuse that they are suffering there, and to bring Hamas to justice to make sure that it can never attack us, as it has been promising to do day and night since that awful day when we suffered that invasion on October 7th. We think it's tragic. We think every civilian casualty is tragic, and it's tragic that many people have died in this war that Hamas began, this war that Hamas is choosing to wage out of densely populated areas, despite our best efforts to get civilians out of harm's way, to evacuate them from areas where Hamas is trying to use them as human shields. We think that anyone who is seriously concerned about civilians, as we are, should demand one very simple thing. Hamas should surrender. Hamas should lay down its arms, release all the hostages, and hand over the war criminals responsible for the October 7th massacre for a war crimes tribunal. Hamas declared war on us on October 7th, and we are fighting now to end this war. And we are fighting to end this war in a war that makes sure that Hamas can never hurt us again. And as we do that, we uphold the principles of international law, of proportionality and distinction, trying to get civilians out of harm's way. It's why we delayed a ground offensive by 3 weeks in order to give civilians a chance to get out of harm's way. Unfortunately, Hamas has a strategy that manipulates the media, of using human shields. It deliberately builds its military infrastructure underground, under homes, schools, hospitals, mosques, even UN facilities, in order to protect its military infrastructure underground, using civilians above ground. That is a war crime. It is a crime against humanity, against the Palestinian people. And we think that people who are seriously concerned about civilians should be holding Hamas to account for its human shield strategy. I think this is a reminder that the people who hate Israel are also the people who hate Britain. The Houthis' slogan is Allahu Akbar, death to America, death to Israel, cursed be the Jews, victory to Islam. And Britain and Israel now find themselves fighting different proxies of the same Iranian regime. We are fighting the Hamas regime in Gaza, and Britain finds itself fighting the Houthis in Yemen. Now, I saw the statement from Lord Cameron saying that for Britain, international shipping and freedom of the seas is paramount, and Britain will therefore use force to secure international freedom of the seas. And we think you are absolutely right to do so. And how much more justified would Britain be in using force if the Houthis were not attacking ships in the Red Sea, but murdering, abducting and raping children on the streets of London? Because that is what we are fighting against, with a different proxy of the Iranian regime, much closer to home. And this is a reminder that these terrorists despise the West, they despise our way of life, and have absolutely no regard, certainly not for international humanitarian law, and not for any norm of humanity. We hope that the day after Hamas, the day after the brutal terror regime that has spent the last 16 years subjugating them and oppressing them in the service of its war machine against the people of Israel, we will be able to live in peace with our neighbors in Gaza. It will require them, however, to turn a new leaf and understand that terrorism is always a dead end, and there is no light at the end of that tunnel. And I hope that the day after Hamas, when we put this chapter of history behind us, we can turn a new leaf and start a new chapter of peace and friendly relations with our neighbors in Gaza.